On the 12th of October 2010, police search a canal in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, and find the body of 17-year-old single mum Laura Wilson. It's been called Britain's first white honour killing, and Laura's murderer is the man she loves.
The fact that Laura brought it to his mother's door, she had to be dealt with.
He punished Laura for loving him.
What he did to her, it's just above evil. Evil.
Britain's Darkest Taboos reveals the shocking real-life stories behind the most horrific acts of familial crime, including murder.
Laura had to witness her own mother being shot dead.
He took her life, and our Alison's, and our Tanya's.
Child destruction.
This is one of the most brutal murders I've come across.
He stabbed my daughter and granddaughter.
And incest.
She stopped seeing her father as a father. She starts seeing him as the sexual predator that he is.
I never thought he'd go as far as to rape me, ever in a million years. He was my dad.
Laura Wilson is born on the 5th of August 1993 in Rotherham, the youngest of 4 siblings.
Pretty blue eyes, blonde hair. Always laughing, smiling, dancing.
She was always sticking her fingers in chocolate and in the fridge, and she was just a normal, happy little child as she was growing up.
That's it, 2 of each. Perfect family. Wherever I went, she was with me. She was youngest, she needed more looking after.
Laura's sister, Sarah, is 2 years older than her.
We've always been close. I mean, there's been times where we've fallen out for like a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but we've always sorted it out, and then we've just knocked it off one shoulder and just got on with it.
Always playing together with dolls and dolls' houses. The children are the most precious things to me, and always will be.
As Laura grows up, she's popular and has close friends.
She was like a sister to me, like she meant so much. She's so easy to get along with, like everybody got on with her. She's always there for you no matter what.
Laura's home life, however, is not always happy. Maggie suffers domestic violence at the hands of the father of her daughters, and the children witness the violence. Psychologist Emma Kenny works with victims of domestic abuse in her clinics and has been looking into Laura's upbringing.
Whilst they were happy as a family, the violence itself would have eroded a great deal of the children's security. It would have heightened their anxiety. And for the girls in particular, it would have given them a very strong message about how women could be treated. For some, this means that they'll never allow such treatment to occur, but for others, it creates a fragility and vulnerability in the relationships that they have with men.
In 2003, Sarah starts to rebel against Maggie, with serious consequences.
Sarah was about 12, and Sarah started knocking about with a lot of rage and started drinking, taking drugs. I kept reporting it and things like that, and I was having to go out searching for her.
In 2005, in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, it's been reported that a minority of Asian men have been allegedly grooming and sexually exploiting white girls.
All cars would pull up outside park because all kids from school would have the drinking park, and all young lasses, of course, like they're all dressed up, makeup on and everything, and really mature for their ages, and they'd be pulling up and like saying, you know, come here, we'll get you some drink, and it just stemmed from there.
And Sarah is one of those girls targeted.
Started hanging around with older men, Drinking, smoking weed, getting high all the time, just running away from home.
That were a lot of strain for Maggie, that, because she'd phone me and say, I don't know what to do with you.
Sarah was still a child when she started using recreational drugs.
I was about 9, 10 when I started smoking cannabis. Cocaine, I was about like 12-year-old when I started taking cocaine. I was just taking cocaine, amphetamine and weed.
Maggie feels powerless to stop the grooming of her eldest daughter.
No, it were always Asian men. I mean, I used to lock doors so she wouldn't go out. The phone rung, she had to go. She went. At one point, she even climbed through the bathroom window and went. I used to phone her missing every time police would come out.
But Sarah's behaviour gets worse. On a come-down off the drugs, she becomes violent with her mum and sister Laura. And she holds them hostage at knife point in their house. Laura is terrified of her sister Sarah, who, at the age of just 15, finds herself caught in a vicious circle of drugs, alcohol and sex.
They drove us up to Sheffield to a restaurant, and when they took us down into this basement, I think I'd smoked too much weed. I think I was going to feel light here. And they put this porno video on and I couldn't watch it. So I walked off. I needed to be sick. Some guys will pick you up, take you out where in a car, and they'll ask you to do something with them. You don't do out with them. Majority of them will just leave you there if you don't do anything with them. You know, I've been in that situation where I've had to walk from the other end of Sheffield because of it.
Forensic psychologist Dr Keri Nixon has carried out research into honour-based violence and has been looking into what happened to Sarah for our programme.
I know from the figures that the majority of sex offenders are white males. However, there is an emerging pattern of grooming and exploitation of young white girls in certain areas. That is a fact.
The authorities are worried that Laura, who is just 13 at the time, will follow in her sister's footsteps.
Social services identified Laura as a young woman who was at risk of sexual exploitation through British Pakistani men.
But Maggie is sure her youngest daughter will not go down the same route.
Laura seen what was happening with Sarah. She liked people her own age, but she hadn't got a boyfriend anyway at that age or anything. She weren't interested. She'd like to be with her friends.
Over the next year, Sarah manages to escape the grooming gangs, gets off the drugs, and returns home. At the age of 14, Laura meets Ashtiaq Ashgar, a 15-year-old British-born Pakistani who attends a local school. Ashtiaq is not someone who is associated with the grooming gangs.
The first time I met Ashtiaq, I'd gone into the flat and he was sat there on the settee with Laura. Nice-looking young lad he were. In fact, he was still at school himself at that time. But I did meet him a few times after that as well, and he was always polite.
She loved him. She worshipped the ground he walked on. She really did. She'd have done anything for him. Anything.
However, there are signs that even at 15 years old, Ashgar has a dark side to his personality.
He had an attitude. It was as if he had to prove himself to people. He had to make out as though he was big and hard and people can come to him, no one can mess about with him. Sometimes at school he'd get excluded because of his attitude and stuff.
He lived in a very patriarchal society where being the man was important. So therefore, part and parcel of being a man was being a strong man, and often that is seen as being an aggressive man. So I think his inflation of his potential aggressiveness was all part of inflating himself as a strong and good and powerful man.
Although he has no criminal convictions, Ashgar claims to be involved in criminal activity.
If I had to describe him, he was a liar. He used to lie about like stuff you don't need to lie about, like stealing his mum's car, just stuff that didn't matter to anybody apart from him, really. I think everybody would say that about him.
He was quite a fantasist. He liked people to think that he was something special. He'd regularly lie to people about fights that he'd won, burglaries that he'd committed.
He were always on about how he were drinking and he were nicking this car and he were nicking that car. He'd been in this trouble. But I really just thought he'd just exaggerated. It literally went in one ear and out the other.
He was a very arrogant individual, very cocky. He truanted from school, he smoked cannabis, he drank alcohol, and all these behaviours would have brought shame on his family. However, many of the behaviours may have possibly been hidden from his family.
Despite these traits, Laura is besotted with Ashgar, and they begin a sexual relationship.
The fact is that as far as Laura is concerned, this is a case of forbidden love, but this is a case of love for her. And she's imagining that he feels exactly the same as she does.
She absolutely adored him. She worshipped ground he walked on.
Ah, she loved him. She read over heels about him. She was so in love with him. She'd do anything for him.
However, Ashgar comes from a very traditional Muslim family, and he believes that his relationship with Laura would bring shame on his family.
He led a secret life away from his family that they knew nothing about.
While Laura thinks she has found the man of her dreams, she couldn't be further from the truth.
Culturally, it's clear that his relationship with Laura would not have been accepted. So this was secret. And whilst that, on some levels, may have appeared quite an interesting thing to get involved with, and Laura might have liked the kind of star-crossed lovers feeling, the truth is that it was actually a relationship that was never going to go anywhere.
This secret relationship is doomed to fail. Laura wants the world to know about her feelings for Ashgar, but he's ashamed of her, and his family are lining up an arranged marriage for him.
He just used her, and Laura didn't deserve to be used. She deserved to be loved.
There's a saying, honour is thicker than blood.
Laura has told his mother and father, and Laura will pay for those actions.
It's 2008 in Rotherham, and 15-year-old Laura Wilson is in a relationship with 16-year-old Ashtiaq Ashgar.
She was besotted by him, and I really do think that he genuinely did have feelings for Laura.
I did care about Laura when they were first together. They were always together.
We have to put ourselves in Laura's position. She's slightly immature and young for her years, and she's found a boy that she feels very much in love with. Her behaviour demonstrates this. She's constantly texting him, calling him. She always wants to be by his side. This is a very intense, almost obsessive relationship for Laura.
This is Laura's first love, but Ashgar is keeping Laura a secret from his strict family.
He was leading two lives. We know that Ashgar drank, we know that he smoked cannabis, we know that he had relationships with women, we know that he enjoyed the usual things that young men enjoy. However, that would have been completely secret and separate to his family life. So he was used to lying.
Although they appear to love each other, the relationship is volatile.
Some of her friends tell me later on that it weren't always play fighting, it were like, you know, that she did have quite a few bruises on her arms and things.
She was feisty and she would fight back, and they often had physical fights.
She wouldn't let anybody walk over it. If somebody said or did anything to her, then she'd give us good back.
Ashgar carries weapons, and he shows them off to Laura's sister, Sarah.
He had this gun. He used to save it at this house, and he used to hide it on top of a cupboard. He used to fire blanks. Then he had a knife, a combat knife. He used to carry it around with him as for protection.
According to Dr Keri Nixon, Ashgar may have had feelings for Laura, but his family comes first.
I think Ashgar had an internal struggle going on, but unfortunately, the macho Ashgar that belonged to the patriarchal society was always going to win.
Ashgar is popular with girls and plays mind games with Laura.
He knew Laura were paranoid about him being with the girls, and if they were arguing, he'd always throw a girl into the argument, like, oh, well, I'm cheating on you, blah, blah, blah. And that used to always annoy Laura.
Ashgar knew that Laura was head over heels in love with him. He knew that he could do anything he wanted to, and she would just be there waiting for him. He could speak to her in terrible ways. He could be abusive, he could be physically abusive and mentally abusive, verbally abusive, and she still would go back to him. He was very manipulative.
In the summer of 2009, Laura's worst fears are confirmed. This time, Ashgar is not playing mind games. He is seeing another girl, and the relationship breaks down.
She was right tearful. I asked what had gone off and she said that she'd found out that he was seeing another girl and she was absolutely heartbroken.
Soon after, Laura begins a brief relationship with Ishaq Hussein, a married friend of Ashgar's.
I think Laura got with Zach to piss Ashtiaq off, just as a rebound.
I think she had this fling with Zach to make Ashtiaq jealous, make him realise and to take her mind off it as well.
And within a couple of weeks, she was pregnant.
Laura is just 16 at the time, and she is still in love with Ashgar. She tells her friend he is the father, not Hussein.
She just kind of just dropped it in, like, oh, I'm pregnant. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, I'm having a baby. I'm like, no way. And first thing I was like, oh, is it Ashtiaq? And she just said yeah to start with. I think she wished so much it were.
And this wasn't a malicious act from Laura. This was Laura trying to create the future that she wished to have.
But Laura has to admit the truth. Hussein is the father. Dr Keri Nixon believes that Laura's reputation in Ashgar's eyes would have been ruined beyond repair.
The fact that Laura had had sexual relationships with 2 friends in the same friendship group would have been deemed totally unacceptable. She had, by doing that, destroyed any chance that they would have a relationship again.
And it caused even more problems for Laura's attempt at rekindling her relationship with Ashgar.
The relationship already had its issues. Culturally, they were going to struggle to be together, that was obvious. But now she's pregnant with his friend's baby. If anything cements that this relationship has no longevity, it's this. So in a way, she's ended any possibilities. But she feels vulnerable, she's in love with Ashgar, she'll do anything to get him back. And even if that means being an absolute walkover, that's worth it to be with him.
While Laura still wants to be with him, Ashgar's attitude towards the relationship has changed. In 2010, in Rotherham, 5 adult Pakistani males are convicted of grooming white teenage girls as young as 12 for sex. A report by police found there was a problem with networks of adult Asian males exploiting white females in the area. And Dr Keri Nixon believes Ashgar may have been influenced by this type of behaviour.
Child exploitation, grooming of young white girls was happening. When Ashgar is seeing this behaviour around him, of course it is going to colour his view of the girls, because he's seeing them engage in this behaviour. They are people who are not to be respected. They are bringing it upon themselves. It's their fault. They're offering themselves to us.
Hussein appears to hold a misogynistic view of women, having had previous relationships outside of his arranged marriage, prior to his fling with Laura.
Zach, he were an attitude person. He'd come in shop and be really clever. I think the lack of respect that Zach had rubbed off on Ashtiaq. He got in with him and changed, and it just all fell apart.
Zach and Ashtiaq, they started becoming really close. And that was when Ashtiaq started being horrible towards Laura.
If you were with a group of lads, it'd be horrible to you. Like, he wouldn't speak to you as if, like, if it was just you and him, you could have a conversation with him. If it were with his boys, you'd not get a conversation, he'd just probably hurl abuse at you.
In June 2010, Laura gives birth to her daughter, Alicia. But Hussein refuses to acknowledge he is the father. Laura adores her daughter.
She were an amazing mum. She knew she was going to be an amazing mum because she loved kids.
Alicia, she did mean everything to Laura. She was there for her daughter, yeah, but she was just too wrapped up in love.
Meanwhile, the man Laura loves is off to Pakistan. 17-year-old Ashgar's family sent him there to find a wife.
He wasn't interested, Ashtiaq, in finding a wife while he was over there. And when he come back, Laura had Alicia.
Even though Laura has a baby by his friend, when he returns from Pakistan, Ashgar gets in contact with her.
She was desperate to rekindle their relationship and be boyfriend and girlfriend. He was using her for sex.
When nobody else was there, that's when he'd turned to Laura.
Now this must have made her feel so hopeful. This is the guy that she wants it to work out with, and suddenly he's there making promises.
She was telling me that she loved him and he loved her, but I think he just strung her along. just strung her along.
She loved him. She wanted to be with him. She didn't want to be with no one else.
Makes me feel absolutely sick to the stomach. Because he just used her. And Laura didn't deserve to be used. She deserved to be loved, but not used.
Laura is desperate to make this relationship work, but she still remains Ashgar's little secret.
Ashgar, however, he knew that he would never be with Laura. He knew that he would end up married to a Muslim girl. But to him, she was a girl that served a purpose at that time. He was able to have sex with her, and once he'd had enough of her, he moved on to the next girl.
Although Laura still loves him, Ashgar's attitude towards her has changed, and he disrespects her.
I heard a phone conversation between Laura and Ashtiaq. Laura telling him how much she loved him, and he was just so nasty and heartless to her. You could hear Laura crying in the background. Just how much he hated her, and that he got another girl and he wasn't interested in her, and she's shouting, "But I love you, I love you." He used Laura, I think, at the end of the day, but no matter what, she still loved him, and she just let him treat her like shit, really, didn't she?
Laura is desperate, and if anything, his rejection spurs her on to become more and more dramatic in her actions and attempts to get him back.
Laura is fed up of being a secret. She is convinced this tale of forbidden love can still have a happy ending. And she wants Ashgar's family to know how she feels about him. On October the 6th, 2010, fueled by alcohol, Laura and Sarah make a fatal decision. They knock on Ashgar's mother's door.
We went to the house and told Ashtiaq's family what was going on.
I think she told Ashtiaq's mum she wanted to get married to him, she wanted to have his babies, and obviously she didn't like that with Laura being white.
His mum just got abusive, tried to throw a shoe at her, well, hit her with a shoe.
She also refers to Laura as a dirty white bitch, so there is some clear racial tension.
Ashgar is there, standing behind his mother.
And Ashtiaq had come on the scene. I've heard that he was just acting right sheepish, and his mother telling him to get it out.
Ashgar says nothing, so he stays out of it, which clearly shows where his loyalty lies, and that's not with Laura.
I lost all the respect for him. Never wanted to see him again. Never wanted to talk to him again. I told Laura to stay away as well.
This wouldn't have gone down well, as particularly that she was drunk when she was saying this, but more importantly, because it was too visual. For the community, for your family, extended family members to know about that is deeply, deeply shameful. The ramifications of being dishonoured in the community are huge.
But Laura and Sarah don't appear to realise the implications of their actions.
We decided to go to Zach's house and tell his mother about Alicia.
She said, I'm sick of her being a secret, because she had been told she'd not to mention about Alicia to any family. So that's what she did, but they just didn't want to know.
Hussein continues to deny that he is the father of Alicia. Forensic psychologist Dr Keri Nixon has done research into honour-based violence.
I think it's important to understand how deep-seated these issues are. There's a saying that we have, blood is thicker than water, meaning that family is more important than anybody else. There's a saying in communities affected by honour-based violence, and that saying is, honour is thicker than blood, meaning to protect the family's honour, to protect the family from being shamed, it is a better option to kill somebody than to bring shame on the family.
She'd fetch shame on their family. She had to be stopped.
Laura's actions are to have terrible consequences.
Ashgar was clearly very angry. He's blaming her, so he's not taking any responsibility for this. As far as he's concerned, Laura has told his mother and father, and Laura will pay for those actions.
In Ashgar's eyes, Laura has dishonoured his family, and he will take his revenge. Laura loves him, but he wants to punish her.
She had to be dealt with.
The consequences of her going around to his house brought shame on his family, and she needed to pay.
We found Laura's trainer in blood.
It's October 2010, and 17-year-old Laura Wilson has just confronted the strict Muslim family of the man she loves, Ashtiaq Ashgar.
The taboo in this situation was a clash of cultures. Laura came from a non-Muslim family, and Ashgar was absolutely expected to be a practicing Muslim and marry a Muslim girl. The consequences of her going around to his house, as far as he was concerned, brought shame on his family, and she needed to pay.
Ashgar's secret life has been exposed, and it has tipped him over the edge.
Everything's falling down around him. His world's collapsing. He can't fake it anymore. He can't pretend anymore. He can't be the good little boy at home. So how does he deal with that? He takes it out on the person he thinks is causing it.
Ashgar needs to silence Laura.
In the days following Sarah and Laura turning up at his house, Ashgar starts to text a friend, and it's clear where these text messages are leading.
Ashtiaq sent Zach a message saying, I'm going to send that kafir bitch to hell.
He also says he wants to make beans on toast of her, which actually means spilling of blood. So these are very explicit signs that he intends to harm her.
They wanted to buy a gun to shoot her first. They couldn't afford it.
The fact that Laura brought it to his mother's door, the fact that she dared to do that, she had to be dealt with.
On Saturday, 9th of October 2010, days after Laura went to Ashgar's house, she is out in Fareham with a friend, while her sister babysits Alicia, Laura's 3-month-old daughter.
I got a phone call off Sarah about 10:30 to say that Laura was going to be back for 9 o'clock and that she hadn't come. So I phoned her. It was about 11:15. Asked her where she was. She said she was around Fareham, and she says, I'm not going to be long. And that was the last conversation I had with Laura.
Sarah is concerned about her sister.
I was thinking, why is she not being in touch if she's stopping out? You know, it wasn't like her not to get in touch.
But Laura has arranged to meet up with Ashgar, desperate to rekindle their relationship.
Apparently, Ashtiaq wanted to meet her at the canal, and as far as I know, she'd just gone, and then that's what happened.
Around midnight, alone, Laura makes her way to the canal in Fareham.
It's dark, it's isolated, there's no cameras, and probably no people walking at that time.
She thinks he's invited her down there because there's a likelihood they're going to get back together. And of course, what we know is that he has the absolute opposite plan.
Sarah is looking after Laura's 3-month-old baby, Alicia, but she is convinced Laura has just been out drinking.
That Sunday morning when she was still not home, I thought there was something weird, but I just chucked it off the shoulder. She was at a friend's house. She got pissed. She didn't want to come home. She stayed out.
But Maggie knows something terrible has happened to her youngest daughter.
But I already know. I know. When she hadn't been home, and I know she weren't coming home. Just know.
On the Sunday afternoon, Maggie finds out from one of her friends that Laura has been down to the canal to meet Ashgar.
I said, she's in that canal.
She rang me, my mum. She was like, someone said that she was supposed to be meeting someone down at canal last night. What should I do? I was like, ring coppers and come home.
Meanwhile, Ashgar is covering his tracks.
The day after Laura went missing, I got a text off Ashtiaq asking if I'd seen Laura, so I was like, no, why? And he's like, oh, she's gone missing. And for that to come from Ashtiaq, it makes my skin crawl, It just shows what an absolute evil person he is.
To his friends, on the other hand, Ashgar appears to be proud of his actions.
Ashtiaq turned around to one of his mates and said to listen out for him because he's going to be famous.
Saying that he's going to be famous is all part of this narcissistic personality. It's saying that he is strong, that he's the big man, and again hoping to get respect from his peers. Somebody had the audacity to disrespect me, and look what I did to them.
On the Monday, 2 days after Laura was last seen, there's still no sign of her.
Sarah decided to get a search going, and she put it on Facebook for a search to meet up. At 12 o'clock down at Canal.
And they make a gruesome discovery.
We walked past this red patch, what looked like cherries had been squashed into the floor. Carried on walking and my auntie picked up a shoe. It was my sister's pimp's home.
I picked it up. As soon as I picked it up, Sarah went, "It's our Laura's in it, our Laura's in there." She dropped it floor. She wanted to jump in that lake, our Sarah. There and then. She went, "She's in there. I know she is, I know she is."
I just collapsed. I just, like a ton of house bricks had just landed on top of me and my body couldn't move. It was like an horror film.
It's every parent's worst nightmare, as Maggie's fears are confirmed.
Within about half an hour, I got a phone call off my sister to say they'd found Laura's trainer and blood.
Police are called to the scene, and divers search the canal for Laura.
Then it was 2 days before they found Laura's body.
Laura's best friend, Somia, gets devastating news.
I didn't even need to be told. And then I kind of just threw my phone at the floor and just screamed a little bit. I was so upset, and I felt like, if I'm feeling like this, like, what are they going through? Like, Maggie's lost a daughter, Sarah's lost a sister.
In her grief, Sarah wishes she could change places with her sister.
If it were going to be anyone, it should have been me. It was my choice to go and knock on Ashtiaq's door. It was my choice to go and knock on Zach's door. She had everything to live for. What did I have to live for? Nothing. I had nothing to live for. My sister was starting a new life. She was starting a little family.
Sarah feels the need to take responsibility and believes that she should have been the one to die. It was her that was involved with the gangs of men. It was her that was vulnerable. She was the one who was angry. She was the one who was violent. She was the one who wanted to protect her sister. And primarily the action of encouraging Laura to go round to Ashgar's house that evening led to him murdering her. And even though anyone else can see that this wasn't Sarah's fault, it's understandable that Sarah feels his responsibility.
I blame myself for not being able to stop it. I blame myself for not being able to protect her when it happened, because that's something she always used to come running to me whenever she had a problem.
Maggie and Sarah have to identify Laura's body.
The only part of her body that I could see was a face from her eyebrows round to her chin. Because of the wounds that she got, they had to shave all her hair off. My baby. I remember even saying that.
She had a stab wound in her face, and to see that, I just felt angry.
I went over and kissed her and put my arms round her. And just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed.
I whispered that I'd loved her, and, I gave her a kiss goodbye and that, and, it's hard to be able to see your sister hurt and not be able to do something about it.
The police make 2 arrests. and charge Ashtiaq Ashgar and Ishaq Hussein with murder.
It was good that they'd been charged with murder, but it shouldn't have happened to start with for anybody to be charged with murder.
Both men plead not guilty, and the trial date is set for May 2011.
He punished Laura for loving him.
This murder was very brutal, was very aggressive, and there was a lot of anger exhibited.
It's May 2011. And Ashtiaq Ashgar and his friend Ishaq Hussein are on trial for the murder of Ashgar's ex-girlfriend, 17-year-old Laura Wilson. It is a case which is described as Britain's first white honour-based killing.
I work extensively in honour-based violence, forced marriage and honour killings, and this case is the only case that I'm aware of involving a white female.
At Sheffield Crown Court, Maggie sees Ashgar for the first time since Laura was murdered.
I stared at them all the time. I couldn't take my eyes off them. I wanted to let them see the hurt that I'd got inside me.
Ashgar shows no remorse.
His family were like nodding to him, you know, you're all right and what have you, and he's saying, going, yeah, I'm all right, and smiling. Got nothing to smile about. That's what it was like, all that same with other one. That's all they were doing.
He was acting the big guy. I'm not bothered. I taught that cuffer a lesson. That's how he'd be thinking about it. She deserved it. If she hadn't have shamed me, it wouldn't have happened. It's her fault. She got what she deserved. These are all things that would be going through his mind.
The court hears how, on the 9th of October 2010, Ashgar lures Laura down to the canal and brutally murders her.
She was stabbed 40-odd times. A lot of those were to her head. She got defence wounds on her hands where she tried to defend herself.
After stabbing her, Ashgar then throws Laura into the canal, but she keeps fighting for her life.
The pathologist's report said that the stab wounds was in her head were to keep her under the water. The other stab wounds were done before she actually was in the water. She had a stab wound to her face. Her throat was slit.
This murder was very brutal, was very aggressive, and there was a lot of anger exhibited. He had absolutely no respect for Laura. There wasn't just one puncture wound. She was repeatedly stabbed with a knife. And as she was trying to escape from the canal, she was pushed back and stabbed horrifically in the head and in the face in a brutal manner.
It wasn't a crime of passion. It was a crime that was calculated and intended to remove somebody who, in his belief system, had harmed him and his family. He punished Laura for loving him.
After hearing all of the prosecution's evidence against him, on the 1st of June, Ashgar dramatically changes his plea to guilty.
When you realise that the case is completely against you, you are going to plead guilty if you think that that's going to significantly reduce your sentence.
There is a retrial for Hussein, and he is acquitted of murder. On December the 21st, the judge sentences 18-year-old Ashgar to 17.5 years imprisonment.
Ashtiaq showed no remorse. He was just upset at the amount of time he got in jail. That's it. 17.5 years. He's going to be out in 2029. He can still get out and get married and have kids and have a good life. My sister can't.
Laura's family and friends are devastated by the outcome.
I don't think it's enough because he's still going to have a life when he gets out. Alicia's going to be Laura's age when he gets out. And I think where's justice?
He could be out when he's 34. At 34, he can start a family. He's just start again. What can Laura do? She can't.
Those who love Laura cannot come to terms with the fact she was betrayed by the man she loved.
To think I know the person, I didn't know him whatsoever. What he did to her, it's just above evil. Evil.
I would wish a painful and slow death on him for what it put her through. He didn't think about Laura and how she were going to die, so why should I think about you?
I really, really hope that he don't come out of that place alive. He don't deserve to be standing on this earth.
I detest him. I detest him. And put me in a room with him and let me... He's not just done it to me, to my sons, my daughter, but to Alicia as well.
The hole Laura has left is immeasurable.
To this day, I think she's going to just walk through the door. I know it's never going to happen. I know it's never going to happen. It's just... It's nice to think that way sometimes.
You go to sleep and she's the last person you think about, and you wake up and she's the first person you think about. She's always constantly on the mind. Even though you don't talk about it all the time, she's just constantly on the mind.
She meant absolutely everything to me. She was such a good friend and such a good person. And I can't believe I'm never going to see her again.
Maggie and Sarah make the difficult decision to go down to the canal to lay flowers for Laura. It's the first time Maggie has been there since the trial.
It's been more than 2 years since I last came here. I find it too hard to come down here because at this last place show we with the person that she loved, and he did what he did to her. Don't like being here at all.
It's just bad memories.
Yeah. Knowing what happened to her.
It's just a place...
It's an evil place where something evil and horrible took place.
Maggie vows never to return. Laura's daughter, Alicia, was just 3 months old when her mum was murdered.
Alicia, of course, is a real victim here. She's lost her mother and she didn't ever have a chance to get to know her. And it's very important to the whole family that they make sure that Alicia grows up fully knowing who her mother is and understanding that had she had a chance, she would have been a loving and caring mother.
Maggie has dedicated her life to looking after her granddaughter.
I need to keep strong. For Alicia, I've got to make sure she has good upbringing, good schooling, and keep her safe. And that's what I've had to do. I've had to focus on Alicia, and that's what I do to this day. That's what keeps me going.
In some ways, having Alicia, it's good because she's got a little bit of Laura left, but then having a little bit of Laura left might be hard. Because sometimes when I see Alicia, it just makes me want to cry so much because she looks so much like her now. She's so cute. So I don't know how Maggie copes, but she's doing so well with it.
And Maggie will always remember her baby daughter.
It makes you smile when you talk about her, about all the good times we had. She was a good person, Laura. She made a beautiful mummy while she were here. It's a bubbly smile, and seeing her nursing Alicia, and she should be here playing with her daughter. She meant the world. I can't tell her that because she's not here to tell her.